Good morning, good evening, and good day. You're listening to Drama Buds, an anime podcast. So hello everyone! Welcome to today's episode of Drama Buds. Welcome to part 2 of the My Liberation Notes episode. And you may say, girly, what the hell? Why do we need 2 parts? I'm telling you, this is a favor to you because I am not releasing a 2-hour episode on the show, which I think this will reach 2 hours if I had done only 1 episode. So just be grateful that I decided to split it up. So yes, last episode was all about the writing, my usual recap and my analysis, my interpretation of events. And today is more about what I thought about the show, the directing, the acting. We're gonna do it comparisons to other Park Hae Young works. And also, I get to talk about my top dramas of all time, my favorite dramas of all time. Because I want to. And this is part of that list. You can guess which shows are part of the top dramas of my life. I'm sure you have an idea. This episode is significantly less structured than the first part. Like, don't worry. Last episode I had to be super focused because, analysis and stuff. But this time, it's kind of chill. So, sorry once again to give you homework, but I think you should listen to the first part just to have an idea of what the hell I talked about and how I interpreted certain events and what I felt about some characters and some events in the show. But yeah, that's it. Let's begin. So just some additional thoughts about, what happened in the show and some general comments about the characters. Let me complain about Coup a little bit more. I feel like I did a bit in part 1, but just a little bit more. Because I think his story just became weak and repetitive when we found out about him in Seoul. Like when we were in his Seoul life, it's like, okay, after the first episode, the first time we saw it, it's like, okay, his life sucks and he hates it. But then they just kept doing it over and over again. And it just built anxiety in me of like, how is he going to get out of this? And we didn't really see how he got out of it. We're just going to assume that he did. I will assume that he got out of it eventually and built his life in Sanpo with Mijong, hopefully. But, it got boring after a while, honestly. I was just there to, see him with Mijong, finally, being happy. Son Soo-koo was still so captivating to watch, It's really, he just sold that performance. And I did love the contrast between Sanpo-gu, who was, surprisingly very restrained and gentle compared to Seoul-gu, to Gu Jak-young. Something that I realized belatedly is that we still don't know that much about him. Right? There's so much that wasn't clear about him. Like, what really happened between him and Vic's sister? Was he actually a track athlete? Because Chang-hee read out his name when he was looking for names of track athletes who had Gu in their name. How did he end up in the host club business? If he were an athlete, how did he end up there? And you know what? I found out more about him through their character intro narration vids. They had that. That's when he talked about how he ended up helping the Yom family. That wasn't actually shown or explained in the show that much. And also, I found the notes of their music director. He took notes about the character in the episode and the music that they wanted to use. I found that through Tumblr, through Korean netizens on Twitter and stuff. I will link it in the description so you can read the translation from Tumblr. But apparently, Gu Jak-young was actually a track athlete. And apparently, Gu Jak-young is a theater kid. No, he did theater for some time because he's very fragile inside and he needed to practice putting on a mask to survive in that the industry, in the world that he was living in. So where did that come from? A part of me is like, is this even canon at this point? Or as a writer myself, in a way, I do understand that sometimes you think of things, you flesh out your character in your head, but that information doesn't end up on the actual work. You know what? I understand that. In all honesty, if I think about Gu, I can see that in his character. It just wasn't explicitly told to me or shown in the show. But as a writer myself, I understand that that's the case. And you know what? I know the character well enough. This just adds context, but it doesn't really change how I see him because I see the result of that context in his current actions. In a way, his character reminds me of, oh my god, of Kim Jenna in Idol the Coup. That's right, we're talking about Idol the Coup today. Woo! But yes, Jenna in Idol the Coup. Like, as I was watching it, I do not doubt any of her actions. It's like, this is in character for her, I know, because I know that she's insane. But then when I think about it, what do I actually know about Kim Jenna? I know everyone else's backstories, except for her. We only had a brief mention that she had parents in episode 3. But we never ever heard about her family or her life before Cotton Candy. It's like, she is only Cotton Candy, she's only the moment. And then we don't know anything else about her. Yeah, for some reason, I feel like I know her well enough. I don't doubt any of her actions. So yeah, sometimes characters you just get to know them in action. You don't have to have their whole backstory spoon-fed to you. So fine, I'll forgive it. Another nitpick, I guess, or something that I wanted to see more from the show. Hyuna, right? Chang-hee's kinda thing and Mi-jung's childhood friend. I wanted to see more of her. She was so underutilized. And I really had a feeling that she could have been one of my favorite Park Hae Young supporting characters, or maybe my actual favorite character. Because there was just something about her that made me love her immediately. And yet, we barely saw her, and what we did see of her, some of it was in flashbacks. So I think we could have had more Hyuna. So close to being one of my top characters. Honestly, my top Park Hae Young supporting character is still the monk in My Mister. There is just something about his story, of having so much potential and just letting go of all worldly desires and attachments and just living your own life. Oh, there's something about it that hits me so hard. And it's like you did something for yourself but hurt so many people in the process. Oh my gosh, what a great character. Gu was almost my favorite Park Hae Young character. But then I realized it's just because Son So-koo is so good. It's not Gu, it's him. I mean, Sanpo Gu was great. But when we met Gu Jagyong, it's like, he's fine. Oh, I should mention this. I loved how we got to know the characters in big chunks. Like, big chunks of the show were kind of, to me, dedicated to getting to know a character and falling for them. Like, episodes 1 to 4 for me were Mi-jung episodes, right? We got so into her head in those first 4 episodes. And then in 5 to 8, it was kind of Gi-jung, right? That's when she was facing her huge character development, I guess, by getting close to Taehoon and deciding to go for him and deciding to confess and messing that up. So that was when I fell for Gi-jung. And then 9 to 12 was Gu. Like, Gu episodes were so strong. They really gave us such little info, but they just made it work so well. And then 13 to 16, final episodes, Chang-hee. Like, the complete turnaround of how so many people felt about Chang-hee in those last episodes. A testament to, really dedicating time to making you fall for him. So, I kind of like how they each had big chunks of the show dedicated to making you understand them and like them somehow. Of course, for others, some of those are not effective. You didn't end up liking that character more or less, but they kind of had their own spotlight. Last semi-comment, I guess. The finale eps kind of felt anticlimactic. I've seen that comment a lot. But the pacing of those final episodes reminds me of Miss Korea, the K-drama from 2014 with Lee Sun-kyun and Lee Yeon-hee. Oh yeah, I get to talk about this show. I don't know why I'm so fond of this. I skipped so many scenes. I wasn't totally, focused on the show, but I don't know why I have such fondness for it. I think it's because it's very different from what I expected. So what happened in Miss Korea was that, all the first episodes, they were going through each stage of the pageant and trying to build up her skills or whatever, just trying to make it through the struggles of getting her on that stage and getting her to the finale. And then the coronation night was in episode 15. And so you'd think, okay, if this were a 16-episode drama, no problem. Last episode is going to be an epilogue of sorts. But no, it's a 20-episode drama. So what are you going to do with 5 episodes after the titular event? And those last 5 episodes showed that the drama was not necessarily about the pageant itself, but about how they continued to struggle, even if they got what they wanted after all this time. It's similar to my liberation notes, right? I mean, they stalled for so long. I mean, bits of their lives were improving and stuff, and they were facing a bit of development for so long. And then a huge shift happened in episodes 13 to 14. And then in episode 15, they're in Seoul now. They've gotten what they wanted, right? They've changed their lives. And yet, life goes on. It's still not peachy and great and wonderful. And we see them still going through some struggles. Some are different, some are still the same, but life goes on in that way. So I really appreciated that. I think that's why I was very much okay with the final episodes not being so dramatic and so conclusive, because I've experienced that in Miss Korea and I really loved the pacing of that show. It's very unique. It's really unconventional, at least nowadays. I think I don't think a lot of shows do that anymore. We're so used to big finale happy endings and stuff, but just to see how life goes on, it makes me feel like this show could go on forever, and I would not entirely be mad at it. Which is also how I feel about my liberation notes a bit. Like, I could have had more of this, but okay, fine, you can end here. You can end at any point and I'd say, yeah, that's life. So maybe that's the mark of a true slice of life show. That it can just keep going if you wanted to, but you can stop at any point and say, yeah, that's life. You can just trust that they'll continue living this way, they'll continue striving, they'll continue facing difficulties, but they'll make it through in the end. That's something that I've always appreciated about the genre. Now we move on to the directing and the acting. Now, this director, I've always thought he was weird. Because I watched The Light in Your Eyes, I watched Law School, like, very different shows and delivered very differently. But, you know, he has weird angles. He uses a lot of shaky camera work. He's weird. He's weird to me. Now I think he's brilliant. Now I think he just delivers exactly what the show is supposed to be. Like, The Light in Your Eyes was very whimsical, but melancholic in a way. I saw that. I felt that. Law School is whack. If I had enjoyed that show, I think I would have super enjoyed that show. But, you know, I was watching it during a slump. I was forcing myself to watch it. So that's why I didn't end up enjoying it as much. But people had a lot of fun with that show. So good for them. My Liberation Notes is so quiet and yet so full of lush sound, really. That's why I love the Sanpo parts, because, you know, they're just the sounds of nature, the sounds of them working, living quietly alongside each other. Oh, so good. It's visually gorgeous. Really, the weird shots kind of work. They're very experimental shots as usual. Of course, I can't describe it because I don't know anything. But trust me, it's a show you have to watch. It's a show that you don't put on the background and just read the subs when you hear them talking. I mentioned this in part 1. You have to watch this show and appreciate how visually full it is and gorgeous it is. Also, the use of music. This show is currently on my list of best score for this year. Yes, I take notes of like the awards I give at the end of the year. So throughout the year, I add shows to that, and so far it's in best score. It's also in best OST. The music is so good. Episode 3, the ending of that, will always be my favorite ending because of how they used Lagarde by Shin Yumi. You gotta watch it. I promise you gotta watch it. It feels so, pardon the use of the word, it feels so liberating. It feels so freeing just watching that scene and hearing that song. So, perfect use of music. And something I also love about this director, about the show, is that I love that they don't use long takes and just let the actors, you know, do their thing. I think most recently I experienced this with Our Blues, where, okay, the characters were having an emotional moment, the dialogue's great, the acting's wonderful, but it's just like one long take. And you just leave the camera there and let the actors do their thing. I kind of hate that. It's visually boring. It's just telling me to just read the subs when they start talking and when you start hearing them crying. But, you know, spice it up a little. Give me something more to look at. You have several cameras. You have several tries to do this. So, yeah, I watched a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff for My Liberation Notes. I don't know exactly how they film it, but a lot of their dialogue and conversations are actually one take, but just so well done and visually interesting to watch. So you get what I'm trying to say. I just don't like long takes anymore. I used to think it was cool, but now I think it's lazy. There's a time and place for it. And I think because they monologue so much on the show, director decided to spice it up a bit so that it's not, you know, entirely a bore to watch. Even if the actors are great, they're doing their thing, they're wonderful, seriously, the actors are perfectly cast, not a single weak link. There's usually a weak link in a main cast of this, but no, not here, not here. EL as Kijong, she is Carly Rae Jepsen too much .mp3. Okay, she is so much, but she portrays it so perfectly. She is unhinged. She's at times childish. She is both unapologetically herself and yet so apologetic for being herself. She is stern, right? At times, especially to Mijong, but also deeply caring, but also abrasive, and just she's everything. EL as Gijong was everything. Changi's actor did really well. I had the lowest expectations for him because of his previous roles, but he did portray how Changi is kind of a loser, but a well-meaning loser, and then just the growth of eventually falling for Changi as a character. Yeah, he did that. So good job for him. Kim Ji-won has always been one of my favorite actresses. I have a bias for actors who have great delivery of their lines. More than face acting, right? More than micro expressions and super subtle whatever. I think voice to me is very important because, okay, reality of the industry, sometimes you want to get or you're told to get plastic surgery or Botox or something, and the face just doesn't move the same way. So at least if you have really interesting delivery of lines, like there's some variation. If the eyebrows or if the forehead can't move as much, I'm sorry, it's a reality. You gotta look good for the job. It happens. So yeah, that's why I have a bias for people with good delivery. Her right now, So Yoon-jin is also killing it in Osuje. I don't know what to feel about that show and about her character and about the relationship there. That's for another episode. But you know what? So Yoon-jin is always killing it. My girl. So yes, Kim Ji-won, So Yoon-jin, two of my absolute faves. Kim Ji-won, aside from having great delivery, also has still great micro expressions. Mijong being so blank and so dead at times, that's exactly what Kim Ji-won portrayed, right? She's, in a way, she's kind of unlikable, kind of unreadable, a little insane, but then she also has sides where she's like a baby, she gets excited. She has some excitement in her eyes at times. Some like very, very subtle happiness. It's not the explosive happiness that we're used to seeing in most K-drama characters. I have no complaints about Kim Ji-won's delivery of Mijong. Now, Son Seok-gu as Mr. Gu is actually insane. I don't know if they'll submit him as Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor, but he better be in the Baeksang Awards next year. He has to be there. I don't know if he's gonna win because you never know who you're going to compete with this year, but he better be on that list because he's insane. He is so good. Full body acting, charisma to the max. I actually could not breathe in some of his scenes. Like, not even his scenes with Mijong. Okay, just his scenes alone. Sometimes I just rewatch it to watch him act. Oh, so good. So good. I'm so absorbed by his performance. Now, Gu Mijong, I've mentioned them. My God, their chemistry is insane. Like, putting two people who can act together is the best idea people have had in so long. Whoever cast these two, thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart because, my God, their chemistry was insane. They were just standing or sitting near each other for most of the show, and I was so obsessed. I was obsessed with them. Still am. Highlighting some of my favorite scenes, I'd say episode 7, the ramyeon scene, the come eat, you were trembling, this is me worshipping you, or you should know Yeonmi-jung, you should know who you are. Oh my lord, amazing. Episode 11, not even the kiss. I will complain about that later. But episode 11, when he said, I worship you, instead of I love you, we know he means I love you. Oh my lord, the joy in her face, right? Thinking simply that, oh, he's really into the worship agenda. But for him, you can see how much this is breaking him because she is the one thing holding him back from having to go back to his terrible life in Seoul. And then, of course, episode 12, I've talked about the breakup scene in part 1. Oh my God, acting masterclass. Oh, so good. Episode 14, their reunion scene at the very end. Oh my lord. I think this is what they mean when they say my heart is fluttering, because that's really what it felt like. Oh, and then episode 16, their very last scene together, she was telling him, just smile, just laugh, just like that, to the demons that wake you up every day or something like that. And he just looks at her like she is the light of his life. I'm about to go insane. Let's end it here. You have to watch them. They're so good. Whew. Yeah, okay, I mentioned the kiss, right? I told you I was gonna complain about it. But you know what? Recently, I have become, I would call it as a creator apologist. I'm an apologist for writers, for directors everywhere. Because I just think, you don't owe anything to anyone. You only owe it to yourself to tell the story you want to tell. So recently, I've been very like, okay, maybe I wanted more of this or maybe I wanted more of that. But like, the story that they ended up telling, was it true to what I think they wanted to tell? I think so. And therefore, who am I to demand something? Why am I entitled to what I want when they know their story best? I've recently become that kind of person. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but as a creator myself, in a way, you gotta respect their vision. Would I have wanted to see Gumijong living in Sanpo together, right? Would I have wanted that? Yes. Would I have wanted to see the episode 11 kiss, not from 1,000 feet in the air, not in complete darkness? Would I have wanted to see it, actually? Yeah, I would. But also that scene was so intimate. It was already so intimate and beautifully shot. And I've always felt like I was invading their space whenever I was watching their moments. And so for once, they just took me out of it and said, no, you don't get to see this. And I hate them. I hate them for it, but also I understand it, and it was still beautiful and intimate, and I hate them. So it annoys me that it's still well done, and that's why I can't completely complain about it. And also, because this show is entirely pre-produced, I know that this is exactly what they wanted and exactly how they wanted to do it. So I respect that. I respect it. And to me, this is better than something that's made entirely, just for shock value, just to keep people watching, or something that's made entirely for fan service. Like, Hospital Playlist 2. Whoa! Okay, let's end this here. I remember 차가웠던 그날 자꾸 떨리는 내 가슴이 혼자 울까봐 눈을 뜨면. Now, I mentioned I would be making Park Hae Young cinematic universe comparisons because I have watched her 3 major works, so I guess I do know a bit about Park Hae Young as a writer. I think this will just be me going through each of the works that I've watched, what I felt about them, and how I think Park Hae Young as a writer has grown, maybe, at least based on how I received those works. First, another Miss O. I did not like this. Even if I could see Park Hae Young's style, even if I could see her characters in it, it was just too frustrating to watch. Just Oh Hae Young being so desperate for this man who was not interested in her initially, constantly begging for his love, was so frustrating to watch. But also, I understood it thematically. It was just exhausting, okay? And also, if you asked me about anything other than what their story was, than the main storyline, like if you asked me about Park Dok-young's siblings, the brother and Isadora, what was the point of their stories, you cannot ask me because I have no idea. I did not pay attention to anyone else. It was just so annoying to watch. The other characters, yeah. Although, I read this translated interview. I will also link it in the description. Park Hae Young, after My Mister, she did an interview after My Mister. And she kind of talked about another Oh Hae Young and how it was a mismatch with, not really a mismatch, but she kind of implied that it wasn't exactly what she wanted, right? With how the director executed everything. Like, if she wanted things at a level 8, the director turned it up to level 10. I don't think that was the show that she wanted to create. She even mentioned something like, others would be dejected if something they made turned out to be not what they wanted. That something you wrote, it didn't become what you wanted when it was made into a show. But she tried not to let that get to her and continued writing. So, a part of me now wonders, what could Oh Hae Young have been if it weren't treated like this? I felt like it was treated as this, insane rom-com with very strong melodramatic aspects, which may be based on the story, but I think the treatment was just such a mismatch. It was too comedic. It was too much of what it was. And I don't think that's what Park Hae Young wanted it to be. So I really wonder what this show could have been if it were not executed like that. Now, My Mister, okay. Initially, I did not trust that My Liberation Notes would be good, right? I mean, you'd say, oh, she's the writer of My Mister. Why wouldn't it be good? You never know. Because for me, at least, I'm a huge fan of the director of My Mister. He directed Misaeng, Signal, Arthur Chronicles. I'm just a huge fan of those, okay? The man has never let me down. And I always wondered, did he just add his magic to the show? Is that what made it so good? That's why I was a little doubtful about Liberation. Also because I watched My Mister, then Oh Hae Young, then Liberation came much later. So it's like, she's not a perfect writer. I can see her style, but she's not perfect. So what's Liberation going to be? And you know what? My hunch was partially true that Kim Won-suk PD added a little bit of something to the show. Park Hae Young, in the interview that I read, she liked that he brought his own thinking into the show. He added something to it. But he also made sure that the show was what she wanted it to be. I think she got to see all the episodes before they came out. So that's very important. I think this was more true to what Park Hae Young wanted. I still think My Mister is her best work. No matter how fond I am of My Liberation Notes, objectively, I think My Mister is better. It stood the test of time. It is still as loved and as revered as it was when it came out. And, you know, the borderline makjang plot of the show is just a background for the emotional connection between Park Dong-hoon and Lee Ji-an and the people around them-ish. And yeah, because the show was so dark, the warm and the light moments felt even more comforting. So I still agree that My Mister is her best work. But after reading Park Hae Young's interview, I feel like Liberation is her most personal work. Like, I think there is so much of her in this. And that's why it turned out the way it is. And you may like it or you may not like it, but I liked it. Her philosophies in life, as I read them in the interview from 4 years ago, are very much reflected in the characters of My Liberation Notes and their conversations. In a way, though, it is partially an improvement on both Oh Hae Young and My Mister. Like, others said that it kind of revisited some of the characters and questions posed in another Oh Hae Young, but this time it's delivered the way the writer wanted it. And I noticed that she really likes writing Oh Hae Young-like characters, right? The intensity, the tenacity, the fearlessness of just going for what you want, loving who you want to love, doing everything that you can for them. She writes that a lot because Gi-jung is very much like that. Hyuna is very much like that. Mi-jung is in a way very much like that. You know, Lee Ji-an is kind of like that. She will go through extreme lengths for Park Dong-hoon. She did that. I think Park Hae Young likes writing those intense female characters who really go for it. Respect. And then, in terms of improving My Mister a little bit, this is a nitpick that I think will come later in my other discussions. But in My Mister, the brothers felt like supporting characters to the main leads. It didn't feel like they were on the poster, you know, with Park Dong-hoon and Lee Ji-an, but they did not feel anywhere near as important as those two. And so whenever they showed up, it felt like, why are you taking me away from the plot that I am so invested in? I was very much like, this is a waste of time. So in Liberation, the entire show is really about the siblings and Gu, and it has a better balance among the main four. It may be better or worse for others. Some may not like an ensemble cast. Some may prefer like main characters and supporting characters. Not me. I'm a big ensemble cast fan, and when it's slice of life, I'm a lot more forgiving to quote-unquote wasting time with characters. So yeah, partially an improvement, partially not better than My Mister, but so good. Now, if you know anything about me, you know what my favorite dramas are. And the funny thing is that they're all connected now. All my favorite dramas form like a square of connections. First, we have Misaeng and My Mister, who have the same director, Kim Won-suk PD. Then we have Misaeng and Idol the Coup, who have the same writer, Jong Yun Jong. And then we have My Mister and My Liberation Notes with the same writer, Park Hae Young. And let's close off the square. Idol the Coup and My Liberation Notes, I watched them while they were ongoing. I loved them while they were ongoing. I was so engaged while they were ongoing. And also they have ships that drove me insane. I'm insane over the ships that I ship there. So yes, all my favorite shows are kind of connected. Isn't it crazy that 4 of my favorite shows are written by 2 people? Just 2 people. It's insane. But honestly, I just love these shows so much. And now I'm able to kind of identify the themes or the similarities between these works of the same writer, even if they're very, very different. Like Misaeng and Idol the Coup, so intensely different. So different. And yet, the central themes that I got from it are, we keep living and we keep striving even after failure. And you also have to ask, what is failure, right? How do we define that for ourselves? And also, your struggles may not mean much to others, but it's your life. It's your struggle. You define how much that means to you. In Misaeng, they said, everyone has their own baduk game. This is just corporate slavery work. This is just trading. This is just signing deals. But to you, this is life or death. Or in Idol the Coup, it's like, it's not about the money, CEO Cha. It's about the dream. It's about us reclaiming our dream, our last months together as cotton candy, CEO Cha. So your story is what matters to you. Yeah. I love that about those shows. My Mister and My Liberation Notes, I guess similarities-wise, they're very comforting in that they really, sit with you and tell you like, your struggles are real. Others are going through the same thing. You are not alone in what you feel. Very much tackles very lonely characters. And then proceeds to show how relationships can change lives. Empathy can change lives. And sometimes it's a romantic relationship. Sometimes it's, family. Sometimes it's friendship. Sometimes it's just being there for anyone and everyone. I feel like all 3 of the siblings in My Liberation Notes kind of represented each of those. Relationships and empathy are life-changing. You are not alone. Additionally, in contrast to Misaeng and Idol the Coup, it's not about defining failure. It's about defining success. Like, what is a successful life? What is a good life? What is a life worth living? Is it really how society defines that? Right? Because from the outside, you'd think, yeah, everything's okay with Park Do-hoon. He has a good family, good job, good position. So why does he act like his life is so miserable? That's because his life to him is unsatisfying. And then on the opposite end, for Chang-hee in My Liberation Notes, like, why does he have to strive for what society thinks success looks like? Why does he need a car? Why does he need to live in Seoul? Why does he need to have a higher paying job? Why does he feel so worthless if he doesn't achieve those things? And what does a successful, happy life look like for him without what society thinks it should be? And so tackling that and realizing that, a lot of people are also unsatisfied with their lives, but you can define what success is to you. You can define what happiness, what liberation feels like to you. It's very comforting. Yeah, that's the comfort I felt from both of those shows. Now, if you ask me to rank my faves, I can do it. This is not an objective ranking because I'm not an objective person all the time. I have feelings. But we have to acknowledge that Idol the Coup is at the bottom here. Because, it's not on the same level as the other 3. It just is not. The acting is bad. The pacing is a little, messy at times. Sometimes so good, sometimes very... And the characters are pretty one-dimensional. But God, the good parts are so good. Episode 8 of Idol the Coup is still one of my favorite episodes of television. Period. And you know what? Stuck the landing, right? I love it when people suffer and they strive and they fail, but you show that they keep surviving. That's very comforting to me also, because I feel like one day I'm gonna suffer and fail, but I have to keep going. And this is what this show made me feel. Now, okay, we kind of know what my number 1 is, right? So number 2 and 3 are the ones that I'm really debating on. I've been thinking about this for a while, right? Comparing my Mr. and my Liberation Notes in terms of how I feel about it. Because once again, objectively, I know my Mr. is better. Things I will not compare. Like, to me, these aspects of these two shows are not comparable. I will not compare the fact that my Mr. is more plot heavy and my Liberation Notes is more slice of life. To me, that's not comparable. It is what it is. It served its purpose in the show. Being more or less plot heavy is not a plus or minus to me. Being more or less slice of life is not a plus or minus to me. Next, I will not compare the directors. I think they are both brilliant and both served what each of their shows needed. Even if Kim Won-suk was my favorite PD for a long time, he has not been working for years, but just not comparable. And the ending to me, I saw a lot of people saying like, oh, my Mr. had a much better ending. It was more comforting, more complete. But to me, you know, my Mr. was more satisfying because it was a darker show. It had a more dramatic arc. So having a more clear-cut ending in a way made more sense for it. Like, okay, the struggles have ended, our lives are changed, we will part ways knowing that we have touched each other's lives that way. My Liberation also is more slice of life, and so it's about their lives continuing but them slowly making it better in their own way, however which way they decide to do it. I think the ending is fitting for both of them and satisfying for the show that they belong to but are not comparable. So the only thing I can use to compare the shows are the characters. And that's why, just very, 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 very slightly, my Liberation Notes edges out my Mr. Because I mentioned it earlier, right? That I did not at all care about the brothers in my Mr. And when I see someone on the poster, when you tell me these characters are important, they're in the press conference, you know, I expect them to play a bigger part, especially in a more plot-heavy show. And the thing is, the plot is so good. The plot of My Mr. is so good. I'm so invested in the main two. I'm so much more attached to them. So when I see the brothers, it's like, oh, you are taking me out of the plot that I'm so interested in. I understood Gi-hoon's story with Yura in my second watch, right? I had to rewatch it and say like, okay, I have to understand what the point of this whole story was. I understood it, didn't mean I cared about it. Yeah, that was my major problem. Well, not major problem, just a nitpick I had with my Mr. It's like, yeah, the brothers are important to Dong-hoon's, you know, his whole character arc and all the things holding him from living a free life, whatever. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, they're important to him. But I don't care. You were taking me out of, you know, the wiretapping and the cheating and the corporate espionage and everything. Now, in my Liberation Notes, as I mentioned, they made sure to balance Worship Couple with the rest. Like, you'd think, okay, Worship Couple is the main attractor of viewers, right? So much of their promo material and stuff are using Worship Couple to bait people into watching the show. So you'd think, oh, they're the most important characters of the show. But not really. I think they were equally important. Their screen time was more or less equally distributed. Even if, you know, you'd say Mi Jong or maybe Chang-hee is the initiator among the cast. Like how, you know, in Misaeng, Jang Gre is obviously our protagonist. He's our initiator. But you can't say that the screen time that the other three new hires got was insignificant, that they're completely just supporting characters to him. Minjong may seem like the initiator because, of course, Worship Couple takes up so much of the story. But then I realize now that I think Chang-hee is the initiator. He's the one who voices out their desires. He's the one who's kind of involved in everyone's stories. He witnesses or he causes Mijong and Goo's first encounter, whether he knows it or not. He's always bugging Goo. Always bugging Goo. And he was there for Gijong in her stupid confession motorcycle accident idea. So Chang-hee is there for everyone all the time. I think in a way, he is kind of the initiator now. While the other two, Mijong, Gijong, kind of have their own stories going on. They don't really mess with each other. So yeah. Also, Chang-hee is the first bill in this show. That's why I'm kind of worried. Like, are they billing him as main actor so Son So-koo can only be nominated as best supporting actor? Is that better for him or worse? I don't know. I worry. I want Son So-koo to win, you know? Anyway. Just to clarify, my Mr. is currently third, but only by a little bit. My Liberation Note edges it out only by a very, very small margin. And this can change with time, right? I might rewatch my Mr. and change my mind, say like, you know what? The greats outweigh the slight nitpicks. But as of now, I have a preference for a good ensemble cast. It's been a while since I watched a good slice of life show and really loved it, because a slice of life recently is just code for like warmth and happiness and goodness and family and friends. Okay, yeah, I'm kind of knocking on Hospital Playlist a little bit. I'm just very frustrated with season 2. You know how it is. But yeah, I like the slowness, the darkness, the sadness of My Liberation Notes a lot, while it still had moments of levity and laughter and stuff. It was just a great balance. I enjoyed the show so much, okay? And number 1 is obviously Misaeng. It's been months. Not even months, maybe a year, over a year since my last Misaeng rewatch. But the fondness never fades. I don't know why I'm still so incredibly in love with the show. And I'm so fond of all the characters. Not just Jangere, not just the main 4, but also, Sales Team 3 and their individual teams. I love these characters so much. It also has the theme of, striving every day despite success or failure. Like, no matter what, just keep going, living for tomorrow and today, whatever. It's always a special theme to me. I don't know why. And this show has stood the test of time. It's been 2 years since my first watch. It's been 8 years since the show aired. And it's still, to me, the slice of life template, especially for a workplace slice of life. This is what the genre is. This is what it should be. This is what it's gotta be. It's my life drama? Is that what they call it? It's my life drama. So yeah, that's it for me today. That's it for My Liberation Notes. Everyone, it's over. I promise. I'm not gonna shut up about it. I think this is already 2 hours if we combine the 2 episodes together. My God. So, usually when I have high expectations for a show, I get disappointed. For example, 39, I kind of had high expectations. Jiri-san, I had high expectations. We all know what happened there. Or I have low expectations and then I get pleasantly surprised. For me, that's business proposal. No one thought that would be as fun as it was. Often, I have low expectations and those are met. I will not even give examples. I probably did not finish them. But rarely, very rarely do I have high expectations for a drama and they are met or even exceeded in ways that I did not think about. And this show has finally done that. This and Pachinko, I think, are the shows that I knew this was going to be good. I did not think it would be this good. So, yeah, that's why I'm so fond of My Liberation Notes. Because I'm just so grateful that I was excited for something and it was as good or even better than I thought it would be. This is my drama of the year. I do not think anything will beat it. I really don't. I kind of don't want anything to beat it because that will set the bar so high and I'm so exhausted, looking for shows. So I'll just keep it this way. Hopefully I find good shows, right, that still entertain me. But right now, I'm accepting the slump. I'm accepting that I will experience a K-drama slump. Yumi Cells 2 is kind of doing it for me right now. I am very invested, very happy. It's so different, and so that's why I think I'm enjoying it so much. But I really can't get into the usual slice of life contemplative stuff. Not for a while, not for a long time. We'll see how this show is received in the Baeksang Awards next year. We'll see, but I can predict maybe at the very least nominations for drama, director, screenplay, actor/supporting actor, wherever they put Son So-koo. Do I want a nom for Best Actress and Supporting Actress? Yes, please. I would love that. But, those are the ones where I kind of see it. I don't know. We'll see how well the show stands the test of time. Because honestly, you do need a little bit of Baeksang recognition to stand the test of time. You know how it is in this world. But yes, thank you so much for listening. If you also listened to the first episode, thank you so much for listening to that. That was really a labor of love. I wrote 8,000 words for that. That was a script. That wasn't an outline. Okay, I was very intense about that. And this time, I just really wanted to talk about my favorite show so far. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you soon. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to leave a comment, like, subscribe, follow, and tell me what you thought about today's episode. See you soon!